So I want to start with Georgina. You've seen the film a few times, this remake. What does it remind you of? What memories does it bring back to you?
Oh, gosh.
I know you would say that, but
Yes.
what does it?
Because it was so long ago. So long
What are
ago.
your impressions of it now, then? Let's start with what are your impressions of it now?
Well, this is the second time that
I
I've
need to
seen
go
it.
a bit further to the mic.
Okay,
let's go.
can everybody, can you all hear me? Well, it's the second time that I've seen this film only.
Second time, meaning that you saw it, it was premiered in New York, the
Yeah.
New York Film Festival, and Georgina was present at that screening. That's what she's referring to, yeah.
So you can all imagine how much happens at once. Of course, I'm kind of reliving my youth, and it's shocking to see your face magnified on the screen. So as it is now, so that was a lot. But also what came up for me was just like the whole casting experience as well. I remember when Kwesi came to my drama school at the time, there was a big buzz.
You were at drama school?
Of course.
Well, I mean,
Yes.
how do I know that?
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Which grammar school was it?
I went to Anna Shears.
Anna Shear, well, a very famous drama school for children in particular.
That's right.
Right?
Yes, based in North
Yeah,
London.
particularly for children.
That's
Black,
right.
you know, well, a
Yes.
mixed
So it was
group.
for
Yes.
it was for like working class,
Yes.
Irish, black children at the time, because of course the film industry was permeated with white middle class children that were predominantly being cast. So it was a really big deal. I remember when Kwesi came, because we knew it was a black production, and we knew that it was an African production, and we knew that it was going to be quite different to anything that any of us had ever done before. So that it just felt quite exciting. So those kind of memories came back to me, really. And also that it was going to be a feature film. So it was
Kwesi,
quite
what
exciting.
drew you to her as to select her
What
for
I
the
really
role?
want to ask her was the computer scene. What was going on in your head? Because it was like we set it up, and you had a therapeutic kind of relationship with your mother. You were what is this? And then your mother answers. What was going on in your mind in terms of that whole interaction? In terms of
Yeah, well, I just wanted to kind of convey that there was a close relationship with Amma and her mother, and that this spiritual experience she was having, she was already well versed with this. She was well ahead of everybody else. But there was those moments where her mother was completely aware of Amma's spirituality, and so it was trying to convey that Mum was aware that there was this this transparency between them.
So you identified with the character in a, let's say, personal way.
Yeah.
Yeah. You drew on that.
Yeah, they had a very strong relationship in the film.
What I found really interesting was that we found you in your innocence. I mean, you know, director, writer, all this magical thing, you know, I read a bit of whatever. But for you, clearly, coming into it cold, was it frightening, or was it like, oh my God, what is this? Am I going to be sane again? What was going on in your head?
No, I wasn't frightened.
That's fine.
No, I wasn't frightened, because my memories of being on the set was I was really well taken care of, and there was a real family atmosphere. So when I was shooting that scene, I obviously knew what was going to happen, but also I just wanted to make sure that I conveyed the right emotions and kind of created some sense of mystery and immediacy in that moment.
When we took you to the forest,
Yeah.
obviously we had to create an African forest out of Bearwood Lake. What was your impression? We even put a Confanoche sword in there. And,
I was thinking
Akpetesi
Merlin was
bottles.
coming up for me. It's like, what's going on?
So what's going on?
I thought this is an African film. Now all of a sudden I was kind of like pulling out the sword like Merlin. I was like, okay, let's continue with this level of fantasy. So it was fun, and it was different, and I liked the way that it was just merging with like the modern and fantasy. I really enjoyed that.
Kwesi.
And then you had your...
He's taking over the interview. He's doing the interview. This is a Ghana man for you, you know. Continue, sir.
Last one.
Yes, okay.
And you had your thing here. You still have it. And in those days, it was like a bit unusual.
It was.
But we wanted to keep you as you were, not kind of the way you were. And there were other things that you probably didn't realize we kept. But
So you're going to share now, right?
No, no.
What those things were in front of everybody.
No, but it was a real transformation. And I remember the first time we actually entered that particular forest. You probably don't remember.
No, help
You
me.
ran out
I
of
was
the
a
forest.
baby.
She ran out, and we had to go and bring her back. Because obviously, it was a complete experience for you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Kwesi, what, in terms of we're talking about casting, what was your casting strategy? Because, of course, the cast is made up of a very, let's say, international, Pan-African cast of characters, actors, some known, more well-known. What was your casting strategy? And could you just say something about the key?
I must say, it was very, very difficult to find Amma. Your school wasn't the only school we went to. To be honest with you, we even, saw so many different people, different walks of life. People brought their children, grandchildren, you name it.
Wow.
Oh, wait, they're perfect. And then we go through and no. And then, even Ghana, there were suggestions. We were getting pictures and, bits of videos or videos. And but the moment we saw Amma, we keep calling her Amma.
Georgina.
Sorry, Georgina.
They still call me Amma, guys. Soon as I met everybody, it was like Amma. I was like, Georgina. That was a character play. Yeah.
We knew that there was some element there that a lot of the children had been coached by their parents.
Okay.
The whole magical thing, they had given them a few lessons, and it wasn't washing for us, because what we wanted was the innocence. And that was really what we found in her. She was really in awe when she acted. And you could see that moment where she, small girl in stature, actually grabs the brother and hits him on the wall. I mean, that scene was so dramatic, and Roger's still around, actually confessed for the first time he was frightened of you. And I was thinking, excuse me, because he had trained for the fight for 5 weeks.
Right.
Roger came very lanky, and then one day he came with all these biceps. And Roger, stay away from me. Me and you are cool, okay?
Yeah, okay.
So it was hard. And then we had to combine that kind of innocence with somebody who knew a bit about it, but not too much. And Enima was very experienced. He had done love brooding in an African port.
Amina Missa.
Enima Missa. She was very, very experienced. And she was excellent. And on set, you could actually think this is a mother and daughter.
Right.
The way, they were kind of behaving and all the rest of it. They were very, very close. And then we had to choose some characters. Neoma Hunter had to come from Ghana. And we had a bit of a tussle with the authorities here, because then the unions were very, very strong. And why do you have to go and bring all these people from Ghana when you can find them here? And it was quite a big tussle, because then I can understand why we should get the people from here. But at the same time, there was certain encomiums.
Right.
When people know encomiums, okay? Like when UK raises the glass. We tried it on a couple of people. It just wasn't working.
Right.
Because that whole thing about people dying and appearing, it's not something which is very common.
Right.
But any Ghanaian knows, someone dies in a village, goes to visit somebody, before they know, he's gone again. And there's this test. They must drink a glass of water. And how you do it was very, very special. And eventually, we got our way and managed to bring not just Neoma Hunter, but, of course, Alexandra Dua. And she was fantastic. The woman was a Aladura spiritual. And we wanted somebody who understood that whole ancestral thing, as well as being a Christian.
Right.
Sometimes we create a binary between them. This is paganism and this is Christianity. And when you see Ghanaians worshiping, they are worshiping Christianity in a very African way. And she conveyed that. And people said, how can you, a Christian person, use this X and so on and so forth? And she conveyed it so much that you couldn't see the contradiction. And that, I think, so it was quite And then there were those ones who had to
And
give a real kind of Cockney.
What about the choice of Thomas Baptiste, who played the brother?
Thomas Baptiste.
Yes. Again, another
We had
important.
a very interesting encounter with Thomas Baptiste. So in the church where he had died, we actually wanted an open coffin. I think I was overruled. Quite no, any other dabi. But I went to talk to Thomas Baptiste, and he said the only reason why he would play that role is if we open that coffin and put a piece of onion in it. So, because, he said, you're not sure what's in that coffin. I said, well, it's light. He said, no. From his tradition in the Caribbean.
He's Guyanese, yes.
Right.
Precisely. Which was really, really interesting. But he got into that whole fantasy thing because it was part of his tradition. His tree was a bit suspect, so we cut out a few, I'm sure those who Neomas.
Getting the accent.
Neomas tree was a Ghana boy. So, we just had to have a very strong Pan-African British cast, but the essence of the story really, really was very important for them to grasp, or else it wasn't happening.
Now, you touched on a few things which we could talk about for the rest of the evening. One is the Ghanaian intricacies. You talked about tree and the different accents of tree, that even maybe some Ghanaians would speak tree differently, which I wouldn't necessarily understand, but you probably would. The other point is that there are some jokes, like the water, which Ghanaians would immediately connect with. Was there anything else that you thought was important to the story like that, specifically Ghanaian, that's in the film that maybe people might have missed?
Oh, there were so many.
Just one or two.
There were so many
in
jokes.
In fact, one.
There were so many jokes in that film, in many ways, in all the kind of interactions, especially, So, for example, when Amma and the mother had actually received this mystery of the prophecy, they were walking home, and they got in, and the thing about Enima was that she was hiding what she did
at work. For a part-time job.
Precisely, because they were middle class and they were a bit down on their luck, so they were trying to. So there's that whole game that a lot of Ghanaians play. You meet Ghanaians 6 o'clock on the tube. They're all there. You see them somewhere else in their suit. They say they are engineers. Anyway, there's so many different jokes that I think were...
Okay, one thing I wanted to pick up on Kwesi Owusu. Of course, this is not the first collaboration with him. You made a film called Waga. And of course, if I might just say, Kwesi made a film in 1971 called You Hide Me, which is about the looted property in the British Museum, right? Called You Hide Me. So he's a filmmaker of, some maturity in a way, preceding you or I, in fact. So how did that collaboration come about, and what was valuable of it in it for you?
I think I really attribute my film career to Kwesi Owusu. I was an up-and-coming poet. We African Dawn was using a lot of visuals and so on. But Kwesi is reputed to have been the first African to have used the 35mm camera for a professional. He came out of a London Film School with great honors and so on and so forth. And I learned a lot from him. He learned a lot from me. But I liked his spirit. Accra boy. Okay, mini. I spoke to him. He said, yeah, Charlie, I come back. Anyway, so you don't speak Ghana, but yeah. So the first time I said we're going to do some magic, where is that so? Yeah, let's put it in. Kwesi, he speaks like that.
Hooligans of the urban hooligans.
Understand and so on. But the point about Kwesi was that he was very curious, he came more or less from slightly older generation of filmmakers. So that gave us a point of an entry. So we made, for example, Waga, African Cinema Now, which again, I think we're going to try and bring out of the archives, because that is just a phenomenal film that really captures the essence of African cinema in terms of the exploration of new languages. And one of the real inspiration for Amma was when we saw Yilen
At
FESPACO.
Yes, and Waga is about FESPACO, the film
You know.
festival in Ouagadougou. Yeah.
And we saw Yilen, and we just got blown. And Yilen, essentially, is also a very
That's
magical...
a film, I would say, by a Malian filmmaker, Suleiman Cissé,
Suleiman Cissé.
which I think you should all see.
We got really blown. It was a magical realist. You see, being a poet, my visual narrative had to be a bit more poetic. You know, I think a lot of the first generation, I mean, if they don't mind me so, I've been a bit pedantic in terms of the film style. You know, and again, the London context was very important. You know, African Dawn, Africa Center, Ruhi knows we did an exhibition in 1991. You know, there was a whole black renaissance with all of us. You are quite an important figure. You're asking me questions. Anyway, we'll deal with it. And so we were more or less very excited about magical realism. We're friends, writers. Ben Okri handled it with the literature thing. He did the Famish Road and won the Booker Prize. You know, we had a great laugh, a cheer about it. But in terms of the whole magical realism thing, I mean, the real champion was Dambuzo Machirera.
From Zimbabwe, a Zimbabwean writer, if you don't know the name,
the Blank
who
Starlight
lived in
and so
London
on.
at
So
the
we
time.
were all like great stories about all of that, which I won't bore you with. But we're kind of young, uppity, audacious, and just wanted to do stuff. And we did stuff, you know. So we said, okay, we want to make a film. We want to go to Waga. The whole story about Waga is a whole different ballgame. We didn't even have money for airfares. I don't know how we got to Accra. Kwate went to the film school, got a couple of guys who could shoot. We put them in a Jeep. We drove all the way to Ouagadougou.
Wow.
You know, a bridge collapsed as soon as we crossed it. We got to Ouagadougou, got arrested by Kampori men. Sankara heard about us and released us. And then that same night, we saw Yilen. Basically, we can go anytime.
Indeed.
Amen. So let's make something. Let's make something. So me too, right? I put a few notes down. But I must say, Amma would not have been possible without the opening in Channel 4. And if Rod is here, anybody is here,
Rod
let's
Stoneman,
just say thank
one
you
of the
to
commissioning editors.
Rod
Yes.
Stoneman and Alan Fountain.
Alan Fountain, yeah.
And they were genuinely interested in opening the doors to new voices, British cinema, you know. And the whole workshop system, you know, we have Black Audio, Sankofa, and Kwate was friends with Cinema Action, so that's where we went. And we were so excited and learned a lot. There was one guy there, German guy, cinematographer called Schlacker. And he had made a film, wonderful film called Rocinante. And I love Schlacker. No nonsense German guy. He had a ruler. If you say something you don't understand, just gives you a little. But great guy, you know. And we learned a lot, you know. We learned if you're arguing too much, he just gives you a little knock and then proceed. So all of that really was important in shaping this kind of film. But I would also say the spiritual part of it was really for my mother. That I must.
Your mum was in the film.
Yeah, she was in
the
the
little
audience.
cameo.
A sit-down cameo, yes.
Yeah.
I was
Wearing the
also,
pink dress.
I was also in the film as a cab driver.
Yeah.
We
So I
know
don't
that,
have
we know
my-
that part.
Yeah.
We're not going to mention it,
Yeah,
but we know
you
it.
spoke it on your mouth, Kwesi.
I lost my locks anyway, but that's a different matter.
So obviously, I've been African spirituality. Just it ran throughout my home. So one of the things which I really enjoyed seeing was the libation. My mum's not here anymore, so just seeing some of our cultural traditions and our rituals that we keep. I remember my mum doing libation all the time, and I was little. I was like, ooh. Yeah. But I remember her doing it and just giving thanks to our ancestors and then praying. So it was just that fusion again of like Christianity and then African culture and traditions is so important. And I think one of the really important things is that we are now reclaiming those parts of ourselves as well now, and I think that that is so, so important. That links in a lot with my work as well. I work with a lot of high performers, black creators and professionals, and one of the things that I use a lot in my work is ritual. And metaphor and symbolism is really strong in my work. And when I was just watching the film, I was thinking, oh my gosh, that's so powerful. And I saw the heart. I'm not sure if that was that Grenfell Tower?
Yeah.
Did everybody observe that? That was in, I can't remember, was it Trellick Towers?
That was actually a new shots we put in tribute to Glenfell.
Right.
Yeah.
So in response to what's new, yes.
We shot at Trellick Towers.
That's right.
On the 27th floor.
Right.
And when I came back and heard about the tragedy of Glenfell, I thought, what would have happened if that fire had broken when we were filming there? So we went back to West London and filmed those towers again. But luckily, they had put those green hearts on them as a tribute.
Yes.
So it was just God sent,
So
and then we
beautiful.
just put them in this film. I think the whole technology thing is really important, and why it's relevant is the same thing. I mean, there was this big debate in Ghana about ancestors contacting us by computer disk.
Yeah.
So, no, Kwesi, this is just
Too much.
So I simply said, if, for example, I die now, I'm an ancestor, I know everything. If I want to speak to Amma, would I get a horsewhip and start chanting? Or would I appear in her DM?
Yeah.
Or the WhatsApp?
Yeah. In a way that she understands, right?
Absolutely. So that essentially, but
Yes.
the whole concept is that our culture is so static.
Right.
You've got to just freeze it in a museum.
No.
And the word is preserve. And we wanted to make it contemporary.
Dynamic.
Just coming back to that, I think this whole film raised a whole question about technology.
Yes.
These days, they call it Afrofuturism. Magical realism is now Afrofuturism.
Right.
And that's the American Hollywood bullshit, okay? Because essentially, instead of paying tribute to films like that, they have made Wakanda, they've made Woman King, and all of that. You know, they bliss your senses with the sound effects and call it Afrofuturism. I don't have a problem with that, but it's essentially magical realism.
Right.
So we're going to play a little trick. We've got a little script we are developing. We're going to see if somebody can bite. We don't want all that blitz in sound effects, but we're going to have a magical realist Afrofuturist film. Whichever way they want to call it, I think we are down for it.
It's time
Okay,
again.
good. So the question, what are you doing now? That's part of what you're doing now.
That is one. This one, we call it My Beautiful African Wedding. That's a commercial, crazy, Afrofuturist, magical, whatever you want to call it. And the music is just Afrobeat, Burna Boy, you know, boom, like that, you know, hit your face in it. Because that has also transformed our world in many ways. You know, at our time, you know, our sons, daughters were afraid in school to be called African.
That's right. This was another point I wanted to
When
make.
Burna Boy did a concert in wherever, I was on a train, and all these people were, you know, everybody for chop breakfast, last. And I'm thinking,
Wow.
and we're proud to be Africans.
Yes.
You know, in those days, if you go to a club and, you know, you're talking that, you're not going to get far with Kwesi, are you? Really? No, you won't, you know. But it's changed completely.
Yeah. The celebration.
So that is a whole commercial thing too. I'm working on the 80s, documentary feature, because so much happened in the 80s, which I don't think is going to happen again. You know, the whole Black British Renaissance, really, we all came from that. You know, all these people now, with all due respect, I mean, you know, we've been knighted, queens, kings, dames, what have you, and all the rest of it, but nobody's asking, where are these people coming from?
Yeah.
Where is Sonia Boyce coming from? Where's Akunfra coming from? Where all these, you know, and they've been knighted and moved, what is it? So I think that is one.
Okay.
And then somebody said, Well, just meet me in a bar, and write me a check. I mean,
Well, there you are. Thank you very much. Kwesi Owusu, Georgina Ackerman.